Paradise lost? Is the pace of tourism too much for the island of Bali? On this week's Fast Track, we're in Bali as one local authority takes a stand and says no to more tourist developments. Hooked on Downton Abbey but can't afford your own butler? Why not travel the world by becoming one instead? And
don't blink. Find out where to find fleeting cherry blossoms around the world. That's coming up on Insider Guide.
Hello and welcome to Fast Track. I'm Fiona Foster, here at London's National Gallery. It's one of the capital's biggest tourist attractions and houses one of the finest collections of European painting in the world, including works by Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Rembrandt and Titian, to name just a few. One of the big draws here this year are the works of Vincent van Gogh, and we'll be taking a closer look at those and some of the other works on display here later in the programme. But let's start today's Fast Track in Bali, which has long been a tourist hotspot and possibly the most popular destination in Indonesia. In fact, last year over 3 million people spent their holidays there, which may sound like an amazing success story, but some say it's come at a price. Large swathes of the island's natural beauty being concreted over to provide resorts, restaurants and shopping centres. So we sent Fast Track's Carmen Roberts to Bali to find out why one local authority there is saying enough is enough.
This is the image that most people will have of Bali. A smattering of upmarket hotels and golden sandy beaches packed with sun worshippers and surfers. It's hard to believe looking at Kuta now that as little as 30 or 40 years ago it was a typical Indonesian beach village with tiny shacks and a few stalls. I've been coming to Bali every year for the past 5 years and I can honestly say the urban sprawl here is quite amazing. Each time I come, the number of new shops, hotels, restaurants, cafes and bars is quite staggering, and they're popping up in areas where rice paddies and fields used to be. While some will argue tourism has helped the local economy, it comes with its pitfalls too. There's rubbish on the beach and waste from businesses is a problem. Travelfish.org is a site dedicated to travel writing, ideas and inspiration around Southeast Asia, and its founder, Stuart MacDonald, lives in Bali. He arrived here around 5 years ago.
Bali was still very much getting over the hangover of the Bali bombings. It was still very quiet, tourism numbers were still very down, and you could walk down some of the clubbing streets in Seminyak and it was dead. You'd struggle to find a restaurant where there was somebody else eating there. Where now, not only has there been a huge amount of development, but I mean you can't find a place where you can sit down because they're packed. I mean it's been a complete explosion in tourist numbers, particularly in the last couple of years with the strong Australian dollar. You've seen a lot of particularly Australians coming in here and it's really changed the landscape.
Traffic is another problem that's spiralling out of control. We mounted a camera on the dashboard of the car to show you the extent of the congestion. We're heading north towards the Tabanan region, known as the rice basket of Bali. Authorities here want to restrict development. I met with the customary head of the village of Klating, who's keen to learn from the mistakes of areas like Kuta.
Dikontrol dalam arti diatur.
I've not seen the plans, but I've seen what's happened in Kuta, and I don't want to see what's happening in Kuta to happen here. There are so many people in Kuta. They are like ants going here, there and everywhere. There's not been enough thought and not enough local involvement. I've got no direct control to say yes or no. I'm looking for a discussion.
Daerah sini, oh daerah sini persawahan.
There is one resort in the Tabanan area that claims to be a shining example of sustainable development. It's right next door to the Klating village and has 48 villas surrounded by rice paddies. When the resort was built some years ago, the community imposed some strict rules and regulations for the hotel to follow.
The designs have been changed several times because of that. One of the things is that there's a few waterways running through the terrain, over our terrain, and these are the waterways from the rice paddies. We had to change some of the buildings just to adhere to that. Obviously the development on the beach side had to be adjusted accordingly, but I think it was at the end it has helped us as well to A, blend in with the area where we are, and B, also to gain respect from the village and from the people that we're working with here.
There's a temple on site as well as a path for locals to access the beach through the hotel, which is important for Balinese customs. More than half of the staff here are employed from the local village, and more than 90% come from the Tabanan Regency.
We in the end decided to hire people that did not have any experience, and we actually trained a lot of people here in the hotel. We have farmers, we have fishermen, we have housewives that were all never exposed to a five-star hotel, that came in and that had to learn how to make a table, but also how to basically speak English and converse at that kind of level.
An hour's drive north, deep into the heart of the Tabanan Regency, lies Jatalui, the rice terraced area recently given UNESCO World Cultural Heritage status. Tourism development here is banned. This is rural Bali at its best. You'll not see a tourist or a tour bus in sight. In fact, I've not even seen a regular bus. So to get here, you'll either have to hire a driver or drive yourself. And it's this inaccessibility that's keeping the tourists away. Which is a shame, because this is a magical place to visit. But this is the delicate balance tourism authorities the world over struggle with. And although development is possible in other parts of the Tabanan region, the locals here remain cautious.
There's got to be a controlling body, so it's done properly, with some control. At least then the rice fields will not be damaged.
If the laws and the rules that they're trying to get across were actually enforced uniformly, it would be a great first step. But I think in a lot of ways Bali is no different to a lot of other rapidly growing tourist destinations in Southeast Asia. Bali's not alone trying to sort this out.
Carmen Roberts reporting from the Tabanan Regency, also known as the rice basket of Bali. And do let us know your thoughts. Are you concerned that the tourism success of Bali could be its downfall? Let us know at our usual address, fasttrack@bbc.com. And that's the address many of you used following our recent programme about a couple who were charged over $1,200 for a simple spelling mistake after booking a flight from the UK to Australia.
The only way I was going to be able to get a flight for my husband with me was to rebook. I mean, the bottom line is I've been charged £825 for misspelling a name.
Well, lots of you got in touch, including Tom from Hertfordshire here in the UK, who said the same thing had happened to him. Using an agent, he'd booked a flight on Jet Airways using the name Tom, but was then asked for $400 to change the name on the ticket to Thomas, the name his passport was issued in.
I complained and concluded that there were no other options other than pay the price or change my name. So I called up Depot, paid $20 to change my name, and then $160 for a new passport. Simple.
Pius Kaira from Zambia had a similar problem after booking flights on South African Airlines for his wife and son.
There was a spelling mistake on my son's name, Kyla instead of Kyra. Because of this, South African Airlines refused to let them board, and because they were connecting from South Africa to Malaysia, I was worried they would miss the flight, and so I had to pay twice for his seat, around $400.
While Nick Zangwill from London said he lost nearly $1,800 after a travel company website inserted the wrong name from an email address he was using at the time.
I wrote a letter of complaint to both Expedia and ANA, but they each blamed the other, as they had at the airport when I came to check in. I was appalled, but they would not budge. I've since then refused to use the site, but I'm $1,800 short.
And finally, Mike Breacher from New York says he was pleasantly surprised at his airline's reaction to a spelling mistake.
I did it over the phone, and although I spelled our names clearly to the agent, he made a spelling mistake or a typo so that my wife's surname was misspelled in the emailed confirmation. Even though I didn't notice the error for more than 3 months, when I contacted EasyJet, they corrected the error free of charge.
Nice to hear a happy ending for a change. And thank you for all your emails and comments this week. Do please keep them coming. Now let's have a look at what's been making news in the travel world this week.
Parts of America have been hit by what the country's weather service is calling a crippling and historic blizzard. Central and northeastern states have been affected by heavy snowfall, which has led to hundreds of flight cancellations and road closures. So if you're planning a journey there, make sure you check the latest advice from the weather service and local media. You won't be able to smoke in some public places in Russia from June 1st as a new law comes into effect, making it illegal to smoke in train and bus stations, children's playground and on beaches. Next year the ban will be extended to hotels, cafes and restaurants. The fine for flouting the rule is 3,000 rubles. That's just under $100. And construction has begun on the replica of the Titanic. Titanic 2 will have air conditioning and other modern fittings, but the interior and exterior of the ship will appear the same as the ill-fated vessel that sank just over 100 years ago. The ship is being built in China and is expected to be launched in 2016. The Australian billionaire behind the project claims 40,000 people have already signed up for tickets.
We're going for a short break now, but stay with us because coming up when we return, Michelle Yanachan will be here with her insider guide to what's happening around the world, including the upcoming Caribbean Sailing Regatta and the world's biggest gathering of amateur skiers. And what makes the perfect butler? We explore the demand for domestic staff following the success of TV costume dramas.
Hello, I'm Michelle Yanachan and this is Fast Track's Insider Guide with my top travel tips from around the world. It's one of the biggest gatherings of amateur skiers in the world in one of the largest ski areas. The Trois Vallées Enduro in France happens on April 7th, bringing together freestyle and downhillers in races open to anyone. Don't miss the fleeting, flowering cherry blossoms at this time of year. The Jinhae Cherry Blossom Festival in South Korea usually falls late March to early April, when more than 250,000 trees are in flower. Perhaps most famously, Japan will be celebrating the pretty blooms at around the same time, with picnics under the trees in Tokyo's Ueno Park and along the Philosopher's Path in Kyoto. And in the US capital, Washington, D.C. celebrates National Cherry Blossom Festival from March 20th. Peak bloom date is usually around April 4th. The trees were given by the Japanese people to the US over 100 years ago as a gesture of friendship. The Caribbean is hosting several sailing regattas over the next couple of months. The St. Bart's Bucket takes place March 28th through 31st, when the stated goal is to win the party. For the more serious, towards the end of April, yachts from all over the world will be arriving in English and Falmouth harbours. For Antigua Sailing Week, there are some phenomenal racing boats here and typically excellent sailing conditions. If you're not on a boat, the next best place to be is Shirley Heights Lookout with its sweeping ocean views. The world's largest fish, the whale shark, is arriving at Ningaloo Reef, following the coral spawning here on the Western Australian coast. These massive creatures will stay in these waters through June, offering up opportunities to swim alongside them. Ningaloo includes more than 500,000 hectares of coral reef, much of it fringing reef, meaning visitors can snorkel just metres from the shore in shallow water. Staying in Western Australia, the Munda Biddy is a new off-road biking trail stretching over 1,000 kilometres from Perth to Albany. Due to be finalised in April, the long-distance coastal cycling trail, whose name means path through the forest in the local Noongar language, is also a biodiversity hotspot with jarrah forests and ancient bushland. Thousands will be taking part in Sweden's Vasaloppet, one of the world's oldest, longest and biggest cross-country ski races. The race is 56 miles along a narrow trail passing by lakes and through dense forest of Dalarna province in the centre of the country. In South Luangwa National Park in Zambia, the rains are ending, the roads are passable again, and camps are reopening. This is the best time of year for bird watching when the landscape's green and temperatures are falling. About 400 species of birds have been observed here. From March 27th, there'll be a burst of colour in northern India when Hindus celebrate the festival named Holi. Revellers mix bright powders with water, soaking passers-by in a riot of multicolour. Varanasi on the Ganges is always a good bet to see the action, as well as Mathura and Vrindavan in Uttar Pradesh, both important towns for the deity Krishna and a short hop from the Taj Mahal. Thanks for checking in with my Insider Guide this month. Until next time, happy travelling.
Just a small selection of the pictures on display here at the National Gallery in London's Trafalgar Square. And if you'd like to get a closer look at some of the amazing works of art here, including those of Vincent van Gogh, then admission is free. Now, to end today's programme, Downton Abbey has been one of the biggest TV hits of recent years, giving viewers around the world an insight into life above and below stairs in a fictional English stately home. Well, now it seems some wealthy tourists are coming to London hoping to emulate the aristocrats they've seen on screen by demanding the services of a properly trained butler. And more than a few hotels are willing to indulge them, it seems, at a price, of course. So we sent David Lewis in his finest white cotton gloves to find out what makes a perfect butler.
The traditional gentleman butler, always discreet and faithfully loyal, he's the glue that once held the aristocrat's stately home together. Now demand is back.
Downton is a great house, Mr. Bates.
From Europe to the Middle East to China, those who can afford it are splashing out on their very own would-be Carson.
Seem daunting.
Of course.
We're looking for someone who's low-key in their whole demeanour, someone who is quiet, who likes to serve, who is good-looking, has to be good-looking, and also someone who holds themselves in a way that says service, discreet, top-notch.
Well, presentation is key, which means that this is going to have to go. Of course, the tradition of butling is nothing new. The word butler comes from the Old French bouteiller, meaning cupbearer. For many years, the gentleman servant had the vital role of keeping his eye closely on the family wine. Over the generations, he became a more senior member of the household. Nowadays, the butler's job has diversified. Seeing my face for the first time in years, I was looking a lot more like a man who could be in service.
Blimey.
Freshly shorn, I asked butler Mika Savari what tips he would give me if I wanted to succeed.
Well, you should be very smart. You should be always immaculate and very, very well presented, as you are at the moment, understanding about the principles and their needs and requirements. So very flexible and extremely discreet.
So not that much to remember then. And what I wanted to know, as I anxiously counted down to my training, is being a butler really like it is on TV?
Well, it's not like being in the telly. I would say in the old times, the 70s and 80th century, people were more concentrating on serving at the lunches and dinners at the table. Nowadays, you have to be a modern butler, so you have to be very flexible and multitask.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the man, gonna be the man.
Slightly buoyed on confidence and vaguely looking the part, I headed over to one of London's growing number of hotels, now offering a full housekeeping service for their guests.
You are in effect my new butler, so we're going to do a bit of unpacking training. So in effect, this is our Butler Academy, and we're going to teach you a couple of the tricks of the trade, if you like. What we do is we put our arm through the sleeve, you turn it inside out, then you put your arm back through the sleeve like that, insert it into the other sleeve.
Very clever. As my guide effortlessly reels off the correct way to handle and fold away clothes, it's easy to see why professional discretion is just so important.
So I probably, as it's dark to light, female to male, I would put that in the middle, though of course I'd open it up. Oh no, in fact I wouldn't. Maybe I'd just hang it up as it is. Maybe I'd place it like it is now. I wouldn't hang it up.
You finally got there.
I clearly have no idea what I'm talking about. But butlers that do can earn anything from $30,000 a year up. The best ones can command more than $300,000. And there are well over 2 million butlers and valets working worldwide. How could I mention the popularity of butlers without at least talking about the most famous one on the planet?
And treacle tart just hit the spot, thank you.
Carson, Downton's unflappable butler. Confidant, aide and loyal servant to the Crawley family.
Mr. Bates had the wisdom to transfer it to her before the trial.
I don't think the tradition of butlers has ever gone away. I think there's always been a butler in a large household in England. I think the people who employ butlers has changed, but the actual butler work has continued for generations upon generations.
So I've learned plenty today about the art of butling, and I'm ending at the most inspiring place there is for any butler. Who knows, maybe if my training continues to go well, I'll just get a job here.
David Lewis getting a few tips on how to be the perfect butler. My advice, David, don't give up the day job. Well, that's it for this week. Do try and join us again next time when we'll be in Colorado, finding out what impact, if any, the legalization of cannabis is having on tourist numbers there. Plus, we'll be taking to the ski slopes of Kazakhstan. In the meantime, don't forget to stay in touch with us on Facebook, Twitter and Pinterest, and do have a look at where we've been and what we've been up to in our features and stories from around the world. Until next time though, from me, Fiona Foster, and the rest of the Fast Track team here at the National Gallery in London, thank you for watching and goodbye.